Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Lindsay Wilson, and welcome to the Lone Star Dowsers. This is the September 2022 meeting, and I am thrilled to have Gwen Foster here in person and online. And
What a thing.
yeah, Gwen, I don't even know how to introduce you. Should I read your bio?
No.
Okay. She's a naturopath. She has personally been an incredible health journey and a mentor and an inspiration to me, and helped me with so many things and so many people. She's a wealth of knowledge, loves to research things, and has amazing stories to back it up. Invents all sorts of things. She's going to find the faster, softer, easier way. She cuts to the chase. So am I missing anything?
That's good. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. So without further ado, Gwen is going to talk to us about anxiety, depression, and
blind dowsing.
So, and if you guys have questions, if you'll just put them in the chat, and we'll have a chance to do questions a little bit later. So here you go, Gwen.
Thanks. Hi. And so it's going to be a little strange for me to look down here and then look at you guys, but I'm going to try to make it work. So I've been dowsing for about 24 years. I learned from Hannah Kroger's place in Boulder. So Hannah was my inspiration, and her daughter actually was my mentor, because Hannah had already passed by the time I got there. And so dowsing was a fundamental part of all her teachings. Like, that was the very first thing you had to be able to do, was douse. And if you couldn't douse, like, you couldn't do the rest of it, right? And
so do we want to tell people who might not know who Hannah Kroger is?
Yeah. So Hannah's was considered one of the top 5 healers of the 20th century. She was up there with Edgar Casey and some others. And she was an incredible healer in Boulder. She came here from Turkey via Germany during World War II. And she had the first health food store in America. She, as far as I know, had the first health retreat. In her heyday, she had a store front on Boulder that was a health food store. And there were some hippie guys that brought teas in from Chautauqua that became Celestial Seasonings. So she was like very well connected. They just put a section of the Boulder Museum about her and her legacy, along with the other health food companies that have started in Boulder or around Boulder. But really, her claim to fame was when, in her heyday, there would be maybe 6 blocks or half a mile of people waiting in line to spend 2 or 3 or 4 minutes with her. And sometimes that would be like hundreds per day. And she didn't care if you were the Prince of Wales or the King of Saudi Arabia. You stood in line with everybody else. So she saw movie stars, she saw singers. There's some famous people that made it through there. And then people from all over the world would literally travel to Boulder once they heard about her. And so her legacy lives on through her daughter Gisela and through Peaceful Meadow Retreat in Boulder. So that's where I'm coming from, when I'm talking about dowsing.
And she was pretty practical, right? I mean, she was pretty
practical.
Common sense. Weren't her parents from Austria? Turkey. So that they were very, they used the earth, they used plants and natural things.
Yeah, she was actually a traveling nurse with a doctor who she learned most of everything from. And they would literally use spices or weeds in the yard to treat, because back in those days in the 40s and 30s, in especially Turkey, but also in Germany, there's no such thing as a health food store. Back then you had to have a resource like in the kitchen, or your dandelion growing wild. So there wasn't all the stuff that we have now. And so then she started also making vibrational remedies, which are basically like homeopathy. And she created an empire of natural health. I still really like her products and prefer her products because they're inexpensive and there's no fillers and they're 100% pure. Even if it means the black cohosh tincture is a little gunky, because they won't thin it out. They won't add stuff to make it nice and thin like you might get from another brand, but they have other stuff in there. So they won't, and if they're out of something because they can't get the organic version of it, they don't sell it. They don't find a replacement. They just don't sell it. So sometimes they're out of things because if they can't source them the way they want to source them, they just don't have them anymore. One other thing I wanted to mention about her is something she said about dowsing was when she started dowsing, she thought it could take, weeks to years to master dowsing. And by the time she died, she said anyone can learn to dowse in 5 to 10 minutes. Like she said that there's like a global consciousness about things, and or like, what they call it, like the
100th monkey.
Yeah, the 100th monkey. So once it's a thing, then everybody can tap into that information and become faster, better dowsers. So for anyone questioning dowsing or how good you might be at it, what I would say is practice, 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 because there's nothing that takes the place of experience when it comes to dowsing. The confidence comes with just doing it. And I remember when I first started dowsing, I'm a very engineer, electronic type person, and I'm a prove it to me person. So when I first started dowsing, I thought, this is so dumb. Like I really did think it was dumb. And then over time, I was like, oh, wow, this is like correlating with other things that I'm seeing as far as like choosing a remedy or whatever, trying to figure out if your liver's okay. And then I became more confident, but I don't think anyone the very first time they're dowsing, this is the first time I spoke to the dowser group, and what new people always say is they're not sure. So they want you to double check their answers, right? Well, I think that's just because you need the practice and the experience. And
my aunt introduced me to dowsing. And so I would try to, learn from her, and my pendulum would not move for a very long time. And now it's like, it's really quick and yeah. But I remember thinking, this is so simple. How come I can't get it?
Yeah. And what happens with new dowsers is what I always tell new dowsers is they generally are sitting there and staring at it and purposefully being as still as possible and expecting it to move. Like, unless the wind blows it, it's not moving. I always tell people to get it started with a swing and then let it swing in the direction that it's going to tell you something. We're going to use a dowsing chart today that is it's called the fan chart, the percentage chart, or the probability chart. We're going to use that today for our dowsing. And I also want to say something about,
if you're here in the room, you should have one on your seat.
Yeah, there's some on every seat.
And I'll screen share for those of you that are online, and the handouts will be sent with the replay.
Okay. And so our friend Carol's here. And so I want to say about blind dowsing is when you don't trust yourself to dowse, ask someone. If it's something really personal and you don't trust your dowsing, then blind dowsing might also mean ask a friend.
Right.
To dowse it
if
for
you're really invested maybe in the outcome or the person or the situation, it's very hard to not be biased.
Yeah. So blind dowsing is one way, and I'll give you a few ways to do that, or call a friend that knows how to dowse and ask them to dowse for you. Because if it's about money or relationships, I never would dowse for myself.
That's what you did today.
Oh, you did. It's just like, because I think I'm a very good dowser, but if I have a bias in the outcome of that question, then I don't think I'm the best person to dowse that. So what I normally do, unless I call Carol, is I'll take a piece of paper and I'll write the options, and then I'll take it and cut it or tear it and make like 6 or 8 pieces of paper that I can't see what's on it. And then I'll put my hand on each one and dowse my 6 options or 4 options. Let's say you're trying to do an investment and you don't know what, when to take the money out or what's your sell point or something like that. I would definitely blind dowse things like that, because once your monkey brain gets involved, you're not going to get the answer that you want. And the thing is too, is if you're not blind dowsing, you may not like the answer you get, so you keep dowsing. I don't like that answer. Let's say you're choosing between 2 men, but I like that one. Well, your dowsing may say differently, but the chemistry may be not what you think. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would never.
So let me recap for people online. So
Okay.
One way of blind dowsing is, like Gwen said, write all your answers to your question, all the possible, answers. Tear up the pieces of paper, toss them up, mix them up, and then you can dowse over each one. I guess a yes or no, or you can figure out how to phrase the question. Is this the best answer for me, or the highest percentage? Yeah. So that's one type of blind dowsing.
And another thing with blind dowsing, always give yourself one option that there's a better choice than what you have. So let's say I'm looking at real estate, and let's say there's 4 houses that I've boiled down to. Then the 5th option would be there's a better choice
That you're not aware of.
that you're not aware of right now, because it may not be the 4 that you found. And then if there's another better choice, you're kind of back to square one, because those 4 are not your best choice. But then don't second guess it, or don't keep redowsing that same list, because there's a funny story. Well, I won't go into the whole version. I'll just say that sometimes you keep asking God, universe, or whoever your angels are, your question, they're kind of like, we gave you the answer, like, move on, but if you keep dowsing the same question every day for 10 days, it's not helping you. It might confuse you, because it's not always true that you're going to get consistent answers every time. So there's a few
mudders the water.
Yeah, muddies the water, and you don't want to be confused. That's the point. I was also,
sometimes you get so many different answers that you get all the answers eventually. If you keep dowsing, you'll just get all the answers, because you're interjecting what you want.
right.
So for those of you online that you maybe didn't hear, Carol was talking about, if you keep dowsing on the same question, that you'll eventually probably get all the answers. So it's not an accurate way to keep doing it.
Yeah. So the reason people do that is because they either don't have confidence in their dowsing, or they don't like the answer. That's the reason you keep doing it, right?
So what do you do? So
I try to do it once, and if I don't like the answer, I call.
But also, kind of like the basic thumb of dowsing is, when you get started, you always want to ask, can I, may I, should I, right? So like, is now a good time? Do I have all the information? Like, do I have permission to even ask this question, right? Because sometimes there's other factors that we don't know that can influence the answer you get, that might not be really correct.
Right. And you just want to have, I would just go with the first answer, but always give yourself that out of, there's a better choice. Or even, we're going to talk about health today. There could be something that I'm not going to talk about that could be a yes for you. Like, I'm going to talk about the most common things I see with mood disorders and brain fog, but that doesn't mean that that's all inclusive of everything out there possible. Because, like, for instance, I'm going to talk about plenty, but I'm not going to talk about Epstein-Barr. I'm just going to use that one. So let's say you have Epstein-Barr, and that's why you have brain fog. That would be a reason that you would get, it's something else, like that would be an example of, something else. So you always want to give yourself that option before you take a deep dive on, something. On the fan chart, let me use yours for a second. This is the fan chart. And we're actually going to start with this just by talking about it. So when I'm asking a question about either products or health issues, which I do a lot with clients, now I do this in my imagination, because to me, it's like this, and this is 50%, and this is 100%, and this is 0%. You don't have to use the chart, but the chart's a guide or tool if you're like a newer dowser. People who are experienced dowsers, will just, I'll just follow the pendulum. Okay, that's about 80%. Like, you don't have to have a chart, but the chart helps. So when I'm asking a question, I want to phrase it in, how much is this particular product? I brought some products, and we're going to blind douse those as well. But, what percentage is this going to help me with blank? If it's 100%, that's great. You have an answer. If it's 20%, I wouldn't even spend the money. So my rule on products is, if it's less than 75% or 70%, I don't even want to know about that product. I'm not going to spend money on something that's going to give me a 15 or 20% improvement in something, because there's probably going to be something better. So if you're trying, and then let's say you have 3 over 70%, then the one that's the highest percentage would be your number one solution. 80% would be second, obviously. But in the case of today's topic, sometimes people have 2 or 3 things that are the reason. So let's say, I'll just use an example. So let's say you're dealing with depression, and you are a vegan, and you're a blood type A, and you're not getting enough protein, and you're not getting, so then you're not getting enough amino acids, and you have digestive issues, and as a blood type A, you're probably also anemic. Okay, well then you have 3 reasons you probably have brain fog. If you address one of those, you're going to have a 10 to 20 or 30% improvement in your brain fog, but is it going to be completely resolved? No, because you have 2 other reasons you haven't addressed, right? So if you get several answers over 70%, I would look at all of those. And I want to say one more thing about products, because I don't know why, but and practitioners are the worst. If any of you are practitioners, I'm gonna tell you, they're the worst as far as dowsing on products and dosage. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna say. So I'll say, oh, okay, this is a strong percentage, 100%. You need this blank, 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 and okay, I want you to take, let's say 2-3 times a day, or 1 with every meal. And they bought the product in April, and in September they're telling me it's not working. And they brought 1 bottle that should have lasted them 15 days. Yes. And then you know what they say? Oh, I've dowsed, and it only said I needed 1 a day. And I told them 6 because that's what I got. Now, sometimes because people don't like taking pills or products or spending money, they may not be getting what they need because their brain and their dowsing is saying, you don't really need that, right? So I would just say that unless you're going to change your diet or something else that would give you that same, whatever it is you need, I would try to not do that, because if you want to see results taking, let's say you're anemic, and let's say you take an iron pill. If you're already anemic, 1 iron pill a day is not going to make you not anemic. You have to get non-anemic, and then maybe 1 a day would be a good maintenance dose. So I'm just going to say that because that's where a lot of people, especially dowsers, mess with themselves a little bit. And I know a lot of dowsers.
So maybe you need to douse. Will this person comply?
and I'm just being like as brutal.
We could do a Raymond Grace we can do a Raymond Grace and clear any resistance to do the problem package on any resistance to taking the proper dose.
Right. I remember one lady, she's passed on now. She was a very well-known woman in Houston that was a very good dowser. And she always had like blood sugar issues, but she wouldn't change her diet and she wouldn't take anything, but her blood sugar was not ever getting better. And at one point, after about 8 appointments, I wanted to fire her as a client. And I said, but you're not doing your part. Well, but I keep dowsing and I get that I don't need that, or I don't, okay, wrong. Like you have to do something. You can't just ignore it. But in a way, she was just like, she didn't want to change. And I get that people, but I'm just saying with products, it's better to be consistent. And the other thing is the body doesn't like this yo-yo thing. It doesn't, like, especially with hormones, people will douse like their hormones, and take it once a week or take it once every 2 weeks. And this to me is like, I'm going to say I'm not a BioT pellet fan. If anyone is doing them, I'm sorry, but that's not how the body works. The body does not work by getting a huge dose of testosterone in your butt and then it go down to 0 over 3 months, and then you get another mega dose. That's not how hormones work in the body. That is not natural. And so that's the main thing I have against it, is that anytime you're doing something like that, but this is including, taking products, like if you take a bunch of something and then you don't take it for a few weeks and then take it again, like a liver detox, every time you do that, the body's like starting over going, well, what are you doing? What's happening? What's happening to me? So consistency is better if you want to see results, right? Okay. Do you have a question?
No, I heard that came in through loud and clear.
I was not talking about Mary, everybody, just so you know.
She was really.
Okay.
Mary knows she was.
So before we start dowsing products, I just have a few things I want to say about the brain. Okay, so, and I just made a note so I wouldn't forget anything. I'm going to go through a list. You can write these down if you like. I know this is being recorded and Mary said she's going to send it out afterwards, but there's a few things you might just want to write down. So one of the biggest, and I think the #1 reason for brain fog, anxiety, and depression is the wrong nutrition. And I'm not saying bad nutrition, but it can be bad nutrition or wrong nutrition. We need good fat to feed the brain. So if you've been on a low fat diet for a long period of time, guess what? Your brain's not going to work. And we need protein, and we need animal protein. Okay. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, you have to supplement the right protein to get all the 22 amino acids. Now, the brain doesn't really use 22 amino acids, but we need all 22. Now, some people will talk about, well, beans and rice are complete protein. And I'm just going to say that's BS. That is not a complete protein. A complete protein would give you all 22 amino acids. Now, some amino acids are essential, some are non-essential, but it takes the essential ones to make the non-essential ones. And soy definitely is not. So if you're on a soy-based diet, bad, because number one, it's a thyroid and endocrine disruptor. So there's a lot of things about nutrition, and some of the products here have to do with that. If you're a blood type A or AB, it's likely that you don't have the digestive enzymes to break down the fats and proteins. So you might have a more sensitive stomach, or you might just not want that ribeye because when you eat it, your body can't break it down properly. The second thing that can happen to the brain, and also especially with anxiety, is food sensitivities, but in the Department of Food chemicals like MSG and aspartame. Now, a lot of people know about MSG, but they don't really know what's happening. So with MSG, the brain has like little receptor sites that are wanting amino acids, like little Pac-Men. And they're wanting these amino acids to come around, and then they fulfill the site and makes the brain all nice and calm and peaceful. Well, what happens when you have MSG, and a lot of people have a misconception that MSG is like only in Chinese restaurants. It's in literally every restaurant in Houston, every single one. I'll tell you a story, and I hate to pick on a restaurant, but it's a story, is that I had a guy come in as a cook from Pappy's on I-10. Pappy's is like a Chili's, but their claim to fame is they make everything from scratch and they don't buy Cisco food. Everything from Cisco definitely has MSG in it. So he's the cook there.
90% of restaurants.
90% of restaurants use Cisco or some food service, food, especially like your Chili's, Applebee's. Now, maybe like a fine dining restaurant may not as much, but if you ever eat out and then can't fall asleep, it's most likely you've had MSG. Like fajitas are soaked in MSG. That's why everyone loves them.
Does not use MSG.
Do they not?
No.
Huh, I didn't know that.
checked.
I didn't know that. I know Papacitos does.
They do not use
Ooh.
MSG.
Got lucky on that one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, us too.
But at Pappy's, what the guy in the kitchen, the cook told me, was that everything on the menu, unless you ordered a green salad and put the oil and vinegar on the side on it, had MSG in it. So that's the soup, the chicken tenders, everything battered, the ranch dressing, the taco meat, the chicken fried steak, the chicken fried chicken, every single thing on the menu. And he said, I think of MSG as a sprinkle, like you think of accent, that's MSG and meat tenderizer. That's why they use it on fajitas, because to make them really tender and yummy. That's one of the ways they do it. He said that 1/3 of the batter was MSG powder. 1/3. So
Wow.
2/3 flour, 1/3 MSG, and then seasoned with salt and pepper. That is a lot of MSG. So think about everywhere you're eating. Chick-fil-A, chicken tenders, dipping sauce, 100% MSG. Most of your frozen meals, most of your, everything. I can't even think of anything that wouldn't have
Does
it.
it have don't they have like secret names for MSG?
Yeast extract, iodized yeast extract. Sometimes it can just say natural flavorings and it can still have MSG. I tell the story to my clients a lot, but I had a client give me a gift basket that had some things in it from a health food store. And one of the things was wasabi peas. And I like wasabi, I like spicy. And I'm sitting there eating the peas, and then I'm laying in bed going, why am I wide awake until 4 o'clock in the morning? And I went and pulled that package, and it was green peas, green food coloring, MSG, and wasabi. MSG was the third ingredient. I'm like, why is that in there? Why is green food coloring in peas? They're already green. And that came from a health food store. So when people think I shop at Whole Foods, that means nothing, literally nothing. And Whole Foods has went downhill anyway since Amazon took them over. Like they barely have anything that's gluten-free or like
They've
stuff.
reduced their vitamin and health food section to, I don't know, like an eighth of what it was.
I went to the one in Sugarland because every time I get allergy testing, it's some kind of weird stuff I can't eat. And that's like one of the bigger ones. And they literally had nothing in the bakery section anymore that was gluten-free, not one item. They used to have wonderful spelt blueberry muffins and all this other stuff. They didn't have one thing. So again, HEB actually has more options now than Whole Foods has in that department. Okay, aspartame is not just in diet sodas, but that's where it's most popular. Sometimes aspartame is in ice cream, and not low calorie ice cream. It's cheaper than sugar to use to sweeten. It's also in pickled ginger. So if you're a sushi fan, it's in pickled ginger, and that's soaked in aspartame. Aspartame does the same thing. So what happens? There's this receptor site, the aspartame or MSG gets in there, and it's like, holy crap, and it starts firing that brain cell to death. There's a huge correlation between Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's having to do with MSG and aspartame toxicity.
Wow.
And there is a place in Richmond, Texas that is treating successfully Alzheimer's patients, and they don't give them any institutionalized food like a nursing home would. Their home cooked meals, zero MSG and aspartame, and no food chemicals. And they're actually turning these people around and sending them home instead of, just declining. And once someone gets in a nursing home, they decline because the food, it's crap, so like hospital food, basically.
Yeah, well, that's kind of exciting to know. So it's been started.
Yeah, someone's actually doing something. Okay, food allergies and sensitivities. This can affect our brain for lots of reasons, but just anything that you're eating that causes inflammation the gut and the brain are directly connected. Anytime that there's like a inflammation in the gut, you can say there's inflammation in the brain. Also, if you are Hashimoto's, which a lot of people are and don't realize it, it can cause a whole lot of other issues, like with gallbladder and digestion and stuff like that. The vegan vegetarian thing, that includes fruitarians, pescatarians, anyone not eating meat like beef and buffalo has to fortify their diet with either protein or amino acids. Because if you're eating a high vegetable diet or a low meat diet or no meat diet, especially, that is a big issue. We're going to talk, there's a handout.
I'm just going to kind of connect the dots in case people aren't following along. So that is a big issue for people having depression, brain fog, anxiety, emotional, mental things happening. Okay.
Yep. And then on nutrition, there's 4 aminos that are particularly important. And you guys have a neuro handout, and Mary will be sending the neuro handout to you guys. I want to talk about those 4 amino acids separately because you guys have a handout. You can do a self-evaluation later. It's the S, D, G, and ACH group. And it says on the form serotonin, dopamine, glutamine, and acetylcholine. So let's talk about these. Serotonin.
Do you want me to share screen share?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so you'll have to tell me which,
and then I'll have to look at me.
Oops, hang on. Sorry, hang on.
I'll talk while you do that.
Hang on, let me make sure it's still here. Hang on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so
it's this handout if anyone's looking. It says brain questionnaire on the top. This is a way to kind of self-diagnose the brain aminos. Huh? Doesn't it say, oh, sorry, health questionnaire. I thought it said neuro or brain. Oh, brain's the first category.
Let's see, do we think this is it?
I don't have any idea. Yes?
Okay.
The question? Oh, okay.
No, that's the,
Bear
bear with me also I can find this.
Well, I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
So serotonin is the first one. Serotonin is the feel-good, happy hormone. It also has a lot to do with sleep. So if you're serotonin deficient, you're likely not staying asleep. And as we get older, our bodies produce less serotonin. That's why older people wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and can't go back to sleep. So, and I'm not calling anyone older, just saying. I see her over there laughing and I'm like, okay, that actually could be a 20-year-old that's serotonin deficient, again, depending on diet. And also I want to say culture. Okay, we have a younger lady over here that it's affecting.
Okay, so is it this?
No,
Okay,
it's this one.
it's that one. Okay.
Also culturally, some cultures are vegan. Most Indians are vegetarian. And so you also culturally then could have problems depending on what your culture is that might or might not, like some, I think Hindus don't eat beef, right? Cows. So depending on your culture, there also might be a cultural reason why these would be naturally low, like your whole life. So this could happen to kids too. So serotonin has to do with sleep and being happy, and it's especially being able to stay asleep. The D group is, to me, a little bit more interesting because the D group is dopamine. And a lot of people have dopamine imbalances. And you'll know that because chocolate's on your shopping list. If chocolate's on your shopping list, you might have a dopamine imbalance. Like you don't go to the grocery store and it's not in the basket, right? Or you make the special trip. That's Carol.
Yeah.
And so dopamine is depression and mood, and see, chocolate makes us happy because it produces dopamine, but so does alcohol and tobacco, and anything that we get addicted to is also a sign of dopamine imbalance. Now, what I've learned through some of my clients actually is that back in the 40s, the AA program included nutrition as part of their program. And about the 70s, they mixed that because if you guys don't know, AA went and split about in the 70s. There was the original AA group, and then there was a faction that said, no, we're the AA group and we don't believe nutrition's important. So the current AA program does not incorporate nutrition, which I think is a huge mistake, because if someone has a dopamine imbalance, they're going to be more likely to be addicted to anything. So I always like to tell the story because I'm 60, I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s, it's not just in the 80s, but this is my version of it. I waited tables to put myself through college, and there was free-flowing drugs like everywhere, every little acid, ecstasy, you go to the dance club, you could find ecstasy everywhere. Okay, why do some people do that and think they're Superman, and other people did it or do it now and they feel like Superman? I mean, some people do it and have this huge euphoria, and some people do it and they're like, that's dumb. The difference is dopamine, because the people that don't do drugs or did drugs and tried them and didn't have nothing with it, they're like, why would you spend money on cocaine? That's dumb. And it's because they saw no difference. It's true. So that's why.
And then there are those who tried it the very first time and had such a reaction, they were hooked.
Right, because if your dopamine is down here at 10% and you do something that gives you dopamine, whether it's chocolate or cocaine, you're like, yes, like I'm going to keep doing that, whatever it is, no matter if it's good or bad or how much it costs, right? Because your brain wants to be balanced. And whatever you find that balance in, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, chocolate, whatever, you're giving yourself a dopamine push. And so we kind of grow up, we get out of that phase, but we still find it, right? Through chocolate or alcohol or whatever we're doing that would give us a dopamine surge.
What do we need to have that dopamine surge?
Well, we have it over here. I'm not going to tell you because it's going to ruin the blind dowsing.
Okay, all right. I cannot seem to figure out the screen share. So
okay, so you can just
people
show.
at home are going to have to just forgive me.
You'll get the handout tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think. Okay, so the next one is glutamine. Now, glutamine has to do. So if you have any people in your life that are addictive and depressed, dopamine. Okay, and this could be any age, kid or person. Okay, glutamine is the one that has to do with anxiety, panic, worry, fear. They're just stressed all the time, and they're high strung. They're afraid of everything. Sometimes it's just a person like worries. Like my mom is a classical worrier. She worries about things that we're like, why are you worried about that? Like we don't even know that person, or it's not anything you can do anything about. That's a glutamine issue. Now, glutamine can be set off by MSG also, because glutamine and glutamate to the brain are the same. So let's say you're glutamine deficient and you're having some hot Cheetos as a snack, which is loaded with MSG. You've satisfied the glutamine receptor site, but you've also just made it go like this, like, nonstop. Okay, the last one is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is really high in egg yolks. Well, what is a lot of people told us to do? throw away the egg yolks. Don't eat those. They're too high in cholesterol. We have to have cholesterol. Our brain has to have cholesterol. Our bodies need cholesterol to produce hormones. You can't throw away the egg yolks. And some people don't eat eggs, like Carol's allergic to eggs. So some people don't eat eggs for different reasons. Well, acetylcholine has to do with mood swings. And I had a lady say something funny about this today, manic and bipolar disorders. Okay, so I had a client today and I said, so do you think you have, because she had a very high score on that, like a 15. And I said, so do you think you're moody? And she goes, well, it depends on who you ask. I said, well, I'm asking you, and then I want to ask your husband, because some people say, no, I don't think so. Well, if they're in my office with a friend or a family member, that person's like falling out of the chair. Like, what do you mean you're not moody? You're so moody. But sometimes we don't see that in ourselves or sometimes we feel like our moodiness is justified. Well, it's because of that person. It's this other person in my life that's instead of me.
So I'm going to spell that in case you guys didn't get that on there. So it's ACETYL and then choline, CHOLINE, because you're going fast.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah.
Okay. So what you do with this handout, like I said, do it later. But what you do is you score how you feel on the things mentioned. So 0 means you never feel that way. 1 is like sometimes or occasionally. 2 would be like more often than that, like monthly. And then 3 would be like daily or weekly. So that's how you score. And if you have a 10 or more in any section, it means you need help in that section. That's where
so
you
there's
would do
8
support.
sections on this health questionnaire.
Yeah, but we're talking about S, D, G, and ACH only. Now you can do the other ones because they're also good indicators for like brain, adrenals, and blood sugar. But the ones we're talking about tonight are the last 4.
Okay, the serotonin, dopamine, glutamine, and acetylcholine.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, the next possibility is poor digestion. If you have any kind of particular gut issue like dysbiosis or ulcerative colitis or any kind of thing that has a name that's going on in your gut, you're probably not absorbing. And so that could be a whole separate problem because maybe you're eating perfect, but if you have gut pathogens, bacteria, SIBO, all these things, it's going to affect the absorption of what you eat. So you could be spending a lot of money on great food and not getting everything you need out of that. So that's where an enzyme could be useful, homeopathy can be useful, or liquid nutrition can be useful because it'll help you get what you need if you can't. I would work on cleaning that up too. The next thing is blood clots and poor circulation. I've never seen more of this than the last 3 years. I think it's for a lot of reasons. I think it's COVID vaccine. I think it's people being more sedentary. No one wants to go anywhere anymore and do anything. Like there's still people that don't really want to leave the house. I'm nice that there's a nice group here tonight, but there's a lot of people that don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to go back to work. They don't want to drive to work. They don't want to go to the gym anymore. A lot of gyms have actually closed down. So where are people getting their exercise from? If you're not exercising and increasing your lung capacity and getting good oxygen in, which happens when you exercise, you breathe harder. Well, if you have poor circulation, which one of the classic signs is cold hands or feet. If you have cold hands or feet or feet or hands that fall asleep easily, like let's say I cross my legs and then, 10 minutes later is asleep. Or let's say you're in bed with your phone and your hands get tingly and start falling asleep. That's a sign of poor circulation. So those are easy signs. Also, some headaches can be just because of poor circulation. So if you have poor circulation, it's pretty likely you're going to have brain fog because, your blood has to go uphill to the brain against gravity because it's easier to go downhill than up. So you have to have good blood flow to do that. So a lot of times as we get older, people think it's like aging brain or, oh, it's normal. I'm 70 years old. That's a cop out. That's a total cop out if you're saying your circulation's poor because you're older. Because if you are moving and exercising, you're going to have better circulation. Okay, so the next thing is anemia, which I've already kind of mentioned, but there's 2 types of anemia, B12 and iron. There are no good vegan sources of iron, none. People say spinach all the time. You'd have to eat a bag of spinach a day to equal 1 steak a week. That's just the way it is. So if you're, there's little amounts of iron in some things, but not enough to turn anemia around. So if you're anemic, that's going to cause brain fog, a lot of times depression, and other issues because of also lack of blood flow. So before we get into, that's kind of the general categories. I'm going to explain the dowsing exercise next, but does anyone have a question before I do
I
that?
have a question. You bring up beef and buffalo. I normally don't eat beef, but I eat lamb or goat.
Lamb and goat.
Okay, so the question was,
Oh.
she doesn't eat beef or buffalo, but she'll have lamb or goat occasionally.
Like how occasionally?
Like 2-3 times a week, 2-3 meals a week.
It might be enough, but lamb and goat are not well known for iron either. But it is a good amino acid source. Any animal meat is a better source of aminos than fish. And fish is way better than soy or beans and rice.
TMI. I only crave red meat once a month,
Mhm.
but otherwise I just don't.
It's once a month is because your body's saying, I'm just going to say it, we're losing blood. We need to replenish it. So women have more iron need, way more than men, because men aren't losing blood every month. And so that's a natural thing, and you should listen to your body. But once a month is probably not enough. Yeah. So again, if someone doesn't like it, or I'm not trying to talk you out of not being a vegan, I'm just saying if you are, or you don't really like beef, you should supplement, because you're probably not getting enough on your own through your diet. Any other questions?
Well, they can douse that and also see how they feel if they're having any of these symptoms too.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is you can do it one of two ways. What I did, because I didn't want to influence the results, this was Lindsay's task today. Carol's daughter works for me. Okay, I brought products.
I'm just going to tell the people online, if I think we had some people late, we're going to send the handouts out with the replay,
Okay,
but you can do this at home.
you can do this at home by, you have a page, you guys, that's 1 through 20. So you can either just do that, because all of these bottles, I covered the label, so you cannot guess what's in there. So you can't make something that's not, and it has a number. So like this one's number 16. You're not going to know what number 16 is. Your job is to ask the question, and I wrote it down, and you guys might want to write it down, but this is just how I would ask the question. I ask, how beneficial is product number 16 for me at this time? How beneficial is product number 2 for me at this time? Or you can say, how beneficial is product number 16 for me for my blank? Brain fog, depression, anxiety, whatever you have going on. Now, you might have other stuff going on that we're not even covering tonight, but you can still ask the question, because there's probably something in this box that might help you. There's 20 items. So we're going to pass the items around. This is the way I would do it. I have my chart. I'm going to say, how beneficial is this product for me? 20. Okay.
And if you don't have your chart at home, you can, ask what percentage.
Yeah,
right?
so-
If yes, no, and then I do like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%.
Yeah, but with the chart, they can just go right to what it is. So I start here where the dark thing is, and I'm just like, which way is it swinging? And it goes right to 20. It shouldn't take more than a second. That's one thing too about dowsing, that my tip is, don't sit there for half an hour. Like, what's it doing? Where's it going to go? Because it will change. What your original indicator is your answer. After that, it's just playing around. So you don't have to, like, what's it going to do? Well, actually, don't do this. Okay. Get it swinging. Like, actually,
See what you're doing.
oh, sorry. I don't know how to do it on there so they can see, but I'm actually getting it swinging, and then it's going to go somewhere, and there it goes back at 20% again. So, and then that's your answer. So on your piece of paper on number 16, write 20. Okay. Now you don't need to feel the product, but I'm very kinesthetic, so I like doing it this way. I like holding a product and dowsing, but you can just go down the list.
Right.
Product number 1, product number 2, product number 3. And at home, you guys can just go 1 through 20.
Yes. So Stacy's asking, what are the numbers of the items? Well, we're not going to tell you till later. So you just want, you write 1 through 20 on a piece of paper, and then you guys do some blind dowsing to see,
That was her question.
just
What numbers, how many numbers are
1
there?
through 20. She might have been asking what are the items.
no, she said, what are the numbers on the items? Like, what are the items? She wanted to know.
Oh,
So we'll tell you the items later. But remember, you want to ask the question, how beneficial is number one,
for me now.
for me, yeah, at this time, and then get a percentage, write it down.
Yeah.
Or if you have a specific issue, or for my anxiety, depression, whatever, brain fog.
And then when you get to the bottom of all 20, circle your top 3. Whatever your top 3 are, circle it, okay, your highest scores. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just start passing, I'm gonna put a few things here.
So the
Maybe
folks here could,
start
we're just
here.
passing the
After you
bottles
do
around,
them,
but
then you just
at
pass them
home,
that
when you're
way.
watching, just do the 1 through 20 on your paper. And let's take a few minutes and dowse.
Pass them around, but remember, you guys can just do it on the paper without needing to touch the product unless you just want to.
I'm gonna douse for myself here, and we'll see.
Okay. I'll do it. Does everybody have a pendulum? I'm watching the pendulums for sale. Yeah, I'm gonna put these right here. But remember, you can just do it with a piece of paper. You don't have to change the product. I think I'm gonna do it myself. I know what the products are, but I don't know.
if you are just doing the paper and you're an experienced dowser, I find it helpful to go to neutral in between. Because sometimes you can be left over from the other one, so I kind of clear my
Okay.
pendulum, you see what I'm saying? If you're just doing the paper, if you're holding the product, then you need to do that. If you're going through real quick, you want to just, for me, I find that beneficial to go to neutral in between.
All right, so I'll share that if you guys didn't hear. So if you're kind of dowsing on paper and you're going kind of quick, you may want to go to neutral each time you kind of start a new number. You'll know if you're doing it or not.
Does anyone have a question or need help? Because I can. Mindy said she had an extra one too. Oh wait. Did you already do yours?
Scale through, I have a couple of.
You already used mine. Yes, so number 1. So everyone, we're doing exercises, so you're gonna go through your 1 through 20.
Here's a question. Instead of asking how beneficial is product X, how about asking is product X at 75 or higher? Yeah. we ask
You
that.
could do that, but you need to have an exact number somewhere to prioritize your top remedies. So if you want to just choose everything that's over 70, that's fine, right?
You could take those ones that are over 75 and then say, and then narrow it down
Yeah, that's true.
to what the percentage is.
Right here. Oh, no, in the box. But they're sealed in their little thing.
I'm gonna do that.
Are you sure?
I was gonna tell you to bring.
Okay.
You know,
I told Mary I've had like 100 of them.
I've done quite a few myself.
I found a couple when I cleaned the closet once.
I think if I went through old purses, I would find a
Right.
bunch, or backpacks, or
I used to have one on my
methods.
keychain.
Closet, 'cause I stayed on my closet and I can't hands off and it's all out.
Yeah, or I have them in a workshop and
Or, right.
lost it. Feels heavier. I like them because they're kind of heavy anyway, for how small they are. And it's okay to get up and go to other products if they're not circulating, if you don't want to just use the numbers.
A few.
I actually
That
have
would
more.
explain my mental state.
I actually have a few more than I expected, but I'm circling them.
Now, if you're not holding the product, how do you do it? You just think of the number?
number.
Just ask, does product number one most
Yeah,
beneficial
you
for
can
me
think of
now?
the number or write them on a piece of paper and put your finger on it and douse.
Okay.
Mhm. If you get something that, if you're actually holding the physical product and you get something that's 100%, just kind of hold it in your space for a minute too and see how that feels. You know, because just holding that in your energy field, you might actually also see like a little difference. Huh?
I noticed it got dark for a minute. I was thinking, I wonder what that is.
Now that people can see us again.
That's the number.
Let me take a drink of tea.
Wow, okay, so if I have
I'm watching it.
8, do I do a priority or do?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, take your highest ones.
well,
So your
I,
90s.
yeah, I have 390.
Yeah, so that would be the priority.
Okay.
If you, like Mary has like 390s and a few 80s,
A
like
lot of 80s.
like 680s or 580s. So the 390s then would be her priority, but honestly, any of the products would be useful that have that score over 70%.
Got 200.
Good. Good. That will be interesting to see what that is, right?
Right.
I have a few. 1, 2, 3, 5. 5 over 70.
So do we ask a different question now or just kind of take
No.
those 3 and,
No, just leave it with that,
okay.
just to be simple. Oh, you only wrote down the ones over 70.
Yeah, yeah, I started, I mean, this was like a 16 and that was kind of negligible and then,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just, if it was high, I wrote it down. So,
And then I can write.
okay, I'm curious, all the people watching, are y'all, are you getting 75 or higher?
And how many are you saying,
Yeah,
if you don't mind,
like
put in the
count.
chat how many you're getting that's over that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
all right, so we kind of did like 2 options for blind dowsing. So you write the number down and they can douse, or they can hold a product that they don't know what it is, that has the number
Mhm.
and douse that way.
So the third option would be to write the product names on paper and
Mhm.
douse those pieces of paper turned over. That would be a third way of blind dowsing. I like blind dowsing better than knowing what I'm dowsing.
Mhm.
personally.
Right, because then we can make it stories about it. So, well, and I guess they could test with their body too. You'd have to know not only your yes and no, but I guess you'd have to keep asking what percentage.
So you want to hold it closer. This is short.
Let's see, Terry's got 4 at 100%.
Uh-huh.
Not everybody.
Stacy had several that were 75 or higher.
I had 2 at 100%.
Did you?
You had none at 100%.
Okay. And so that's why.
So you're less screwed up than me.
Yeah, but there's more that seem to be like.
Well, I had
90.
5, yeah, 5 total.
Yes. And then you can neutral, ask it to show you a no. So my no is any sweating straight line. But. you can
Did
ask
everybody
it to
go
show you
through
here
their
and see if it
1 through 20?
No, it just whatever you feel comfortable.
Did you go through yours?
I'm a slow dowser.
Okay.
It's okay.
You kind of want to hold it here because this is where this, so that's okay. So that's. You can get it just fine.
It is almost 8.
See how fast time goes.
Mhm, mhm. So we do this and then, this was like brain. Anxiety.
Okay, just keep.
And
See everything.
that's it.
Okay.
Brain and mood.
Okay.
And then you say,
Yeah.
show me 0.
So when people are done, I'm just gonna tell them what the numbers are.
Okay.
Well, actually, they have a handout.
Okay. Oh, what were the other hands?
They're for what the products are. 1 through 20.
Okay.
So people will see what those are.
No, show me my.
Actually, I
next.
need to go get one of those
You know what,
pages.
it's better to have it. I'll come out. I didn't sit down.
What number is that one?
Just here, let's take this. Oh, you're last. Yeah.
All right, I did not test with that, so
Or
kind of curious about that. Okay, you got 6 that were less
can
than
ask if it's
50%.
beneficial
So,
for your
I wouldn't worry about those, Terry. I think
Okay,
Gwen's
circle.
kind of rule of thumb is if it's 75% or higher,
Okay.
then focus on that. But it's also specific to, I guess your question too. You know, how beneficial is product number
Okay.
16 for me at this time?
Just do it one more time. Show me my next.
I should,
Yeah,
cameras.
Here, do this. Do we have any more questions online? We can also kind of talk about blind dowsing with, like if I call you and ask you to douse for me, I think
Well, I
that's
did
really
mention
helpful.
that about calling Carol.
I don't think they got it.
Oh.
The,
Straight across.
like
Yeah.
1 through whatever, or question number 1, what's your answer?
Okay, I'll say that because I do that sometimes. I'll say, Carol, okay, A, B, or C.
Yeah.
So she's blind too.
Right, right.
She was looking at you like a deer on the headlines.
I know. I think it would be a single straight line. Now show me.
Got food on that thing.
Okay. All right, so if you're online and you're watching this in the future, another way to do the blind dowsing is I can call Gwen and I'll have my questions formulated in my head, and it could be,
A, B, or C. Like what I was saying is when I call Carol, I don't tell her either what she's dowsing for me because I don't want her to have an influence. So I will say, Carol, A, B, and C, and I'll have A, B, and C written down
as the question.
as the question. So it's really crystal clear of what, because sometimes this is what happens sometimes if you don't write it down is you're thinking something, but then you kind of change what you're thinking or alter it. And you're like, oh, well, but, and then it becomes confusing. So I don't tell Carol what she's dowsing. I'll just say choice 1, 2, or 3 or ABC. What?
Okay, I also sometimes blind douse myself. So when I call you or Mary to blind douse for me, I often do not know what ABC
Is.
is.
Yeah.
So I put it in the paper. And then I put ABC, but I folded them all up. I don't know which one's which.
Yeah. So it's like double blind.
So it's double blind. And I do that because I can be thinking something and Mary could be tuning into that for me.
Like what you want the outcome to
What
be.
I want the outcome to
Mhm.
be.
Can you guys hear what she just said? Okay, good. Yeah. And so the question's usually yes or no.
Mhm.
So yeah. So you got a yes for question A.
Yeah, but it could be a percentage. It could be the same as dowsing, like anything.
Right.
How many people are almost done or done? Almost, okay. I can look over here.
13, 2, 4, 5.
Does anybody have questions about blind dowsing?
Others. Does anyone else have, oh, there's a pile over there by. Let me- 13.
13, 2, 4, 5. 13.
Who else has products with them?
Oh, I have.
Oh, I think they're working.
We're trying.
Okay, let's use. Are y'all done with these?
Sure.
It's. No, I'm not. Either
I'm open for it.
Hi, Buffy.
If you want to just give me your pen. I'll just tell you.
I should have mentioned, I just remember one other product there. While you guys are doing that, there's 2 other things that I want to tell you that there's products for, which could have to do with mood, but it can also have to do with a lot of other things. There's 2 hormone products because hormones can definitely, especially in women over 40, can play havoc on our mood and our brain. So anxiety, depression, brain fog, very common with menopause. And the other product that I didn't mention a while ago was for sensitive people, which is probably most of everyone in this room, the empaths, the intuitives, the sensitives.
You mean not just emotionally sensitive?
No. I mean, like, if you're an empath and you're taking on the negativity from the news and the world and your son and your husband and your wife or whoever, that's another reason you might have mood stuff happening is because you're taking it on from other people. So there are remedies for those 2 things too, sensitive people and hormones. I forgot to mention that earlier, but they're in there.
But they're not part of the plan.
They are.
They are.
Mhm. So it's possible you could be choosing one of those. Yeah. Okay, for the sake of time, should we start talking about the solutions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because you guys can also, since you have just the numbers, you can go forward with this later too. So what I would like to do is tell you that you have a handout that says Lone Star Dowsers product order form, and it has the numbers, but it has the product next to it. I'm going to go through those and tell you what they are. And you would probably want to circle or mark the ones where you had your highest scores, like maybe your top 2 or 3. So if you had 3 100s and 170 and the rest were low, then the ones that are, 100 obviously would be your highest ones. Okay, so it's this handout that says Lone Star Dowsers order form, and it's numbered 1 through 20. And what I would say is the easiest way to try to follow this is just to put it next to your 1 through 20 results, so you can just start they're a match going down the list. Okay, so the first one, number 1, is amino acids. Just amino acids. It's a Nature Sunshine product. If you got a high score on that one, it means you're not either getting enough from meat, or you're not digesting the meat you're eating to make a dent. Okay, so number 1 is amino acids. Number 2 is neurotransactive, which is a homeopathic spray that's the 4 amino acids that I've said: serotonin, dopamine, glutamine, acetylcholine. So it's giving you not all the amino acids, but it's giving you the 4 that make your brain and mood happy. Okay, number 3 is Dopaflow. This is a great remedy for children because it tastes like chocolate. So if you got a high on number 3, it might be because you like chocolate, because that's what number 3 tastes like, but it's dopamine. So this would be, low mood or the addiction thing I said. Number 4 is Serotaflow. Now I marked that one. For me, I had a 70 on that. So that has to do with sleep. I notoriously have had do a lot to sleep. But it's for mood and sleep support, and it's a fruit flavored spray. So the 4 sprays that are like these plastic bottles like this are fruit or chocolate flavored, and they're great for kids because kids don't like to take pills, or they don't like things that taste bad.
When she says Seraflow, she's talking serotonin.
Yes, well, it says Serotaflow. That's the
But
name
they
of the
don't know that.
product. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you don't have the handout yet. Number 5 is GABAFlow, and GABAFlow is a fruit flavored spray that's for blocking MSG. So that could mean you're getting too much MSG, or it just could be that you're a little anxious or nervous or worry too much, those kind of things.
Or you got to eat a lot.
Yeah, you got to eat a lot. Number 6 is Acetylflow. That's the one that I said comes from egg yolks. And that one's for did you find it?
I don't think I have it.
Let me see.
I can't find it.
Right here.
Oh,
It's like that one. There you go. I was gonna blame it on Mary if you didn't get it. No, we walked around and passed, well, y'all were here when we were passing them out.
Well, men can't find anything.
That's, yeah, I know. So
Wait,
women always have
wasn't
to
there a
help.
remedy for that
Yeah,
one?
there's a remedy for men. It's not on here though. Okay, so 6 is Acetylflow. So this is the mood swings, manic and bipolar. That's number 6. Number 7 is a pill form of GABA. GABA is a great solution when you can't avoid Pappasitos and you're going to go and eat fajitas. Then you would want to take GABA first, because if GABA gets into that brain receptor site before the MSG, it blocks the MSG because the glutamine receptor site has been satisfied already. So I wouldn't say go eat that all the time, but if you're going to a birthday party or a dinner, or if you're just craving, that, or in any of these restaurants I mentioned, you would take GABA first. What were you gonna say, Carol?
I have a question. So I take a few of these, and so would that be why they are not showing up as,
Mm-hmm,
because I'm already taking them?
mm-hmm.
And one more question or one more comment, I think that's important to know.
Because you wouldn't be deficient now because
Right,
you're
I'm not
already,
deficient,
right.
Right, because I'm taking some form of that. Right, so the other thing I wanted to just mention to everybody, just like the GABA going in before the MSG going in, if you MSG, it works opposite way around. If the MSG goes into that receptor, your receptor's full, so it can't take in. Not only does it keep the brain cell firing, but the actual amino acid that you ate from the meat or whatever can't go in either.
Right.
So the actual real amino acid GABA or whatever can't go in to the receptor cell.
That's actually a great point, because let's say let's say you're going to, I don't know, is Movable Feast still open? But let's say you're going to somewhere, or Seasons 52, and you're having a nice dinner and you're hitting all the food groups. But if you had, let's say,
Ranch dressing to start.
ranch dressing or Cheetos an hour earlier, I'm just picking on nacho cheese, Doritos, whatever, because you couldn't wait till dinner, you've already filled the receptor sites with something that's making your brain go like this. So if you've ever laid in bed, like, why can't I sleep? And why am I thinking of old crap from 20 years ago?
Yeah.
That's MSG. Clearly that's MSG. And if your brain is looping, like you're thinking about something and you're like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that situation or person or whatever. There's no reason to think about it. Your brain is literally just going through files. It's called busy brain. It's just going through the index file of all your memories, and they're just coming up. And that is an MSG reaction for sure.
But also the good stuff you just ate at Seasons 52,
It
or
didn't.
your organic grass-fed steak you just ate just went down the tubes, because kind of, and to some degree, because all the good stuff didn't get to get into the receptor site.
Exactly. Or let's say you had an appetizer that's a fried appetizer, like a blooming onion at Outback. And then that's definitely MSG. And so is the sauce. And then let's say you have that nice steak and Brussels sprouts. Well, you just ruined it by the MSG, because like Carol said, you've blocked the brain from getting the good stuff in your food.
Unless you take your GABA.
Unless you
Before.
take GABA. And salads are a big bad culprit in this, because most salad dressings have MSG. So you're having your nice salad before your dinner thinking that's all healthy. But if it's a normal salad dressing, anything besides the oil and vinegar on the side, you've just ruined your meal as far as your brain is concerned. And you're causing some of these problems of that main brain fog or mood or depression stuff.
Terry says her husband calls it monkey brain.
Yeah, monkey brain. It literally is monkey brain, and you can't stop. I'll tell you, I have a friend from high school that her daughter was in a car wreck, and it was a very bad car wreck. They actually took the top of her head off and left it off for weeks. It was the weirdest thing. And after she recovered, and this is the point of a book called Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills by Dr. Blaylock. It exactly happened to my friend's daughter. Dr. Blaylock said that it's a great book because it talks about MSG causing Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. So everyone's worried about aging brain and not wanting to end up like in that situation. You cannot have MSG at all. It's not worth it. Like, it is not worth killing brain cells. And that's what it's doing. They're firing and then dead. They're gone. They're not coming back. You can't get them back. So once that's happened, it's too late. Okay, now your brain is regenerating brain cells if you have the right nutrition and fat. You are building brain cells, but not if you're killing them faster than your body can make them. And so that's important to know. But anyway, what happened with her name's Tuesday. What happened with Tuesday was, and this is what he writes about in his book, is that he's a neuro-oncologist, which means he specializes in brain tumors. And so what Blaylock said was that, they were saying that the reason people that had brain tumors had a higher incidence of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all these things, they always said, well, it's because you had a brain tumor. And Dr. Blaylock's the one that stepped up and said, no. We have to disrupt the blood-brain barrier, which is the natural protection for food chemicals to get the chemo to the brain. Once we took that protection away, everything is just free flowing to the brain. The red food coloring, the green food coloring, the sulfites, the nitrates, like whatever. So he's the first doctor that came forward and said, this has nothing to do with your head injury or your chemo. This is because of the brain chemicals. Well, Tuesday lived with me in Boulder for a while. This is what she ate every single night for dinner, every single night. Wolf brand chili out of a can with hot Cheetos. Okay. She could not ever fall asleep. She had a sleeping disorder. She would fall asleep about 4 a.m. and she was in college. So she would miss classes, and she flunked out of college, and she would not eat those things. We would make a nice dinner with no MSG, but this is just what she ate. So, like, we shouldn't be stubborn about like these canned and packaged foods. you know, because it was literally killing her brain. I mean, she couldn't even think straight.
What did you say she liked to eat every night?
Every night she had Wolf Brand chili,
A chili.
Chili from a
Wolf
can.
Brand chili, and hot Cheetos. Every single night she ate that. And the girl couldn't think straight. She couldn't function. She couldn't sleep, and she couldn't pass any courses in school.
And she had really bad anxiety.
And bad anxiety. I mean, like to the point of
Like
panic a
paranoia.
lot. Yeah,
Crazy.
paranoia and
So
panic.
was this before or after the accident?
About 5-6 years after the car accident.
Oh, wow.
Because it never is, I mean, once you don't have the blood-brain barrier, I mean,
They take it away.
right, there's no way to get it back.
Ooh.
So, but the point is, the book is really good at explaining why we can't afford to go eat a bag of chips or eat stuff that, you know, whatever, like, it's not worth it. Like, who wants, you know how many people contact me because their parents had Alzheimer's or dementia and that's what their biggest concern is? A lot. But it's not because it's hereditary, it's because they're eating the same crap that their parents ate. You know, because most people eat what they grew up eating. You know, it's a pattern of what they're doing. Okay, let's keep going. So the next one is L-phenylalanine. No,
So what- this
L-phenylalanine,
is number 6,
number 8.
number 8. Okay.
So number 8 is L-phenylalanine. L-phenylalanine is the amino acid that's a precursor to dopamine, and this is in a pill form. I put liquid or pill just because some people care about those kind of things. And the next one is number 9, 5-HTP. 5-HTP is basically 5-hydroxytryptophan. It's a precursor to serotonin. Again, it has to do with mood and sleep. Number 10 is glutamine. Now, glutamine and GABA are very similar. It would be very likely that you might have had a high score on glutamine or GABA flow because they all do the same thing. They're just different products. Okay. Number 11 and number 12 are for the sensitives. If you had a high score on number 11 or 12, this has to do with, you know, being sensitive. So the first one is psychic protection, which is a fine horn spray. And number 12 is sacred space mist, which is like frankincense and rose, and it's good for clearing and protection. So if you had any high scores on those two, it's probably because you're taking on stuff from other people. Number 13 is kava cool. Kava is like a very interesting herb. It's the best thing I can say is it's a chill pill. If you're kind of high strung and you're anxious and you worry and all the stuff, it's different than glutamine. But a lot of people now, I'll tell you what's weird is I just put up a new website, and the Square people and Shopify didn't care about a lot of things like CBD. They didn't want kava on my website. And I was like, kava's been around 5,000 years. Like, why not kava? But it's being sold together with kratom and other things that are good for people that are going through opiate withdrawals. And so opiates are a dopamine. So if you know anyone that got hooked on opiates, that's another sign of a dopamine imbalance. So that would be Dopaflow or L-phenylalanine. Okay, because opiates is what they want is dopamine, and they're getting it. Opiates is another example. So kava is the chill pill, or it's a chill tincture. Okay, the next two, 14 and 15, have to do with hormones. If hormones is affecting your mood and brain, then that would be progesterone cream or black cohosh, which is a estrogen, natural estrogen. And then 16 and 17 kind of go together. We didn't really talk about this too much, but it's thyroid or adrenals. A lot of times with, if you have low thyroid, which also means you would have low temperature, you can have a lot of mood disorders are tied to just having low thyroid function. So if your temperature is under 98 degrees orally, it's a sign that you have low thyroid.
So 16 is
16 is thyroid, and
it's
17
called Apex thyrozyme.
thyrozyme and adrenozyme. Okay,
Yeah, so 17 is adrenozyme.
yeah. Number 18 is HCl prozyme. This is a digestive enzyme that helps break down meat and fat, and it's especially important for blood type A's and AB's. And then the last two are different types of iron. So one's an herbal iron and one is a meat-based iron. So if you had a high score on 19 or 20, it would mean that you need iron. Iron would help you. So let's ask me questions. I mean, you guys ask me questions, because now you know what showed up on you and you know what your higher scores are, does someone have a question, or does anyone have an aha moment, or is anyone surprised?
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised because I'm blood type B and I've had the, low iron before the issue. I just didn't know it showed up 100%.
Okay.
So, and then the other one was the aspartame deficiency, like all the things I had guessed before, but I was very pleasantly surprised. It showed up as 100%.
Okay. So it's confirmation. Yeah. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay.
Could be opening a can of worms, but don't sometimes people show up as anemic, but it's a copper issue?
It can be, but it's copper disrupts thyroid mostly, but copper, most anemia is just diet. It's just diet. Now, sometimes people have high iron, and that's a different issue with the liver, but that's not near as common as just regular anemia. Anyone else have a question? Yes.
I just wanted to ask you about the iron. My daughter has to go in for iron infusions once a year because her iron is so low. She had a stomach back, that's one of the stomach, and such a diet. Not much. This has been some years ago. But she had to go in and these iron infusions every year just to keep her iron up. And I'm just wondering, when she does that, she went in today to have a check, and I think it's okay. But I'm just wondering if she was to take your product, would that prolong her having to get those iron infusions?
That's a great question. So how old is your daughter?
53.
Is she done menstruating?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do you want to just repeat about that?
yeah, so the question is about a person who's getting iron infusions. Would taking iron solve that? So I have two things to say about that. In a non-menstruating woman, what I don't like about iron infusions is the same reason I don't like BioT pellets. You're getting a bunch of iron and then none for a year. So you're going from kind of that same all or nothing. I'd rather them take an oral iron or eat beef or beef liver. But if it's dietary and she can't, like if someone's had a bypass and their stomach is, very small, the one thing I would make sure and get in a day is a good protein drink. Like it doesn't have to be a big one. It can be 8 ounces, like a chocolate protein or whatever she likes. There's some good ones I can name, like Total Vegan is a good one. It has like a vegan based. If someone doesn't have an allergy, I like hemp and whey also. But anyway, you want to make sure then when you are eating, because I know a lot of people with bypasses, they're not eating a lot, but what they're eating isn't good either. So it's not healthy. They're eating, they're going for the stuff they love, like the Frappuccino, which is giving them nothing beneficial. And then they fill up on the Frappuccino and then they don't want to eat like food. So I would make sure and get a protein drink and then definitely an iron pill I would recommend based on her blood type. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Did we have one of the questions talk about B12?
Yeah,
Can I
but I
mention-
didn't bring the B12.
Yeah, no, that showed up, we kind of had a practice group over the weekend and a Lloyd Muir number that showed up for like a super deficient in B12 showed up for me, which I thought was really interesting. And then I had 90% on Dr. Christopher's iron supplement. So I think I need to do both or one, or I guess we douse that.
Yeah, you could douse. So you could use your fan chart to douse any other thing, that we're talking about. Like you could use it to test 3 different protein drinks, which one's better for you. You could use it to check just B12 and just think of B12. If there's something, else that we're talking about that you want to check that I didn't bring a product to actually check for. So there might be something else that, you can check. There's a lot of things actually that aren't like included here. I tried to cover as many bases as I could without getting into weird stuff. Like that could be a whole nother night, whole weekend, actually. Because diet is probably 50% of it, but the hormones and the sensitivities and that stuff is the other 50%. You know, what the adrenals and thyroid are doing, you know, all those are important. So that's why when someone contacts me and they go, what would you do for anxiety and depression? I don't know. It depends, you know, because they might need 3 things, or they might just have one major thing. What I think with kids is kids just don't eat well. You know, so you have a lot of kids, like, don't we see this on the news or Twitter or social media all the time? You know, someone committed suicide or someone attempted suicide, or I have a lot of teenagers that, especially during COVID, were, you know, like just really, really down and out. And because, you know, we're meant to be social and they couldn't be social. And then they're eating the same foods all the time and mostly not good. You know, I don't know about you guys, and I think we're not all the exact same age in here, but did anyone here have their parents cook them a completely separate meal or let you eat whatever you wanted when we were kids?
No.
Hell no. Like, there were 6 kids in my family, and if you would have said, I don't like pot roast, it would have been too bad. Like, then you starve. And that's it. There was no like, well, we're going to give this kid this because that's what they like. And we're going to give this kid this. Yeah. And I have a client who told me that his wife makes 4 meals every night. 4 meals. And I'm like, that's insane. You know, but so we're doing this to ourselves, like with the kids, but also the kids are on pretty limited diets. I also have another client whose kid, well, this is kind of a very recent story as of today. I don't think she's on this, but y'all would know her anyway. Okay, so first of all, her child ate Chick-fil-A 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. I know Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays, but she would get extra on Saturday. And that's what he ate. And he was having shortness of breath, and he couldn't play and he couldn't run. And I did a lab workup on him, and he was actually showing congestive heart failure on his labs.
Oh my God.
And yes, and he was eating 3 fried meals a day and chicken and waffle fries and a soda. That's all this kid ate. He would not eat anything else. And she said his temper tantrums and his fits were so bad that they just caved in. Okay. So this was about that lab on this boy was about 2.5, 3 years ago. Okay. So they basically said he went 5 days without eating in rebellion of eating like regular food, right? But they got him out of Chick-fil-A. They just didn't buy it for him anymore because I said, your son is like, he's a heart attack waiting to happen, and he's 8. So she came in today. She happened to come in today. The reason she came in today is because he is at 8. No. He's 8 now, so he must have been 5 when he was eating Chick-fil-A 3 times a day. At 5, you're eating what people give you. You know, like, did we even 5? I didn't even know what McDonald's was
That's
at
my
5.
question. How did they even get to that?
It's crazy. Well, she comes in today for an appointment for him because at 8 he's growing hair and boobs, and he's having breasts, and it's because he's estrogen dominant. Okay, he's estrogen dominant, and we did his labs again. His estrogen's through the roof because of eating fast food chicken, which is loaded with hormones, by the way, because they inject the chickens to make them go from an egg to a full-grown chicken in half the time. So all of our meat in the grocery store and restaurants is bombarded with hormones. Anyway, he has man boobs, he's overweight, and he has hair growing. And this is what his doctor says. Oh, it's normal. Some kids just go through puberty at 8 or 7 or 8. That's the new norm. Just like they're saying the new norm is everyone has low thyroid. That's the new norm. It is not normal for a boy that's 8 to have breasts and be overweight and have growing hair already. This is because just like the chicken, his body is accelerating and speeding up because of what he ate for all this time. So now we have to go through this very extensive protocol with him to get the estrogen down. Well, the other thing that is a big subject right now on media is about, you know, the trans, I'll just bring this up, this is way off topic, but you know, the trans thing.
We're going there.
And yeah, we're going there. Because what I see from a naturopathic perspective is when your estrogen is sky high for a little boy, She says he cries over anything. He's having a hissy fit over everything. She said he's acting like a teenage girl. Well, his testosterone was a 5 and his testosterone should have been 300. His estrogen was 3 times what it should be for his age. So, okay, what do y'all think that might have to do with all this stuff right now with all these gender confusion? Well, if you're a little boy and you have high estrogen and no testosterone because the estrogen has snuffed it out, yes, you're going to act like a girl. And his dad, they're from another country. His dad is worried that he might be gay or he's very wussy, like he said. And I'm like, it's what you've been feeding him. You know, that's why, I mean, his estrogen is like that of a young girl, teenage girl, and his testosterone is gone. So I could say
Diet
that
matters.
diet matters. I could say nutrition matters. You can't just give kids what they want. They have to have real food. And whether you're a grandparent or parent, I'm a grandparent. If you're a grandparent, it matters. They just can't eat whatever. Because how is their brain, I'm talking about brain and mood now again, how is all that supposed to be normal if they're not getting the food to make it normal? And you know, what do kids do? They eat the same 5 or 6 foods all the time. If they like grapes, they eat grapes. If they like chicken, they eat chicken. But they're not eating the vegetables and all the things that we ate as kids.
So we're kind of at time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just say thank you. And if people want to get products that will help these things, how can the people online do that?
Okay, so I have a new website that I'm excited. It's gwenfosternd.com. And I have over 700 products that I work with. And so gwenfosternd.com, so naturopathicdoctor.com. And all the products are on there. And if you put in a keyword like dopamine, you'll find products that have to do with dopamine. Or if you put serotonin, or if you put parasites, or if you put thyroid, you'll see all my thyroid products. And I do have some here tonight that won't help the people on Zoom, but also on that same website, if someone wants to schedule an appointment or schedule a consultation, they can do it online.
Yeah, so she does online and in-person
Mhm.
appointments.
Mhm.
And are you taking
And Katie,
new people? Because you were pretty,
only till October 15th
okay, so you are accepting new clients.
for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So if you want an appointment
Yes.
and you haven't had an appointment with Gwen, I would highly recommend it. It's a wealth of information. You're gonna have to like take notes because she goes quick and she's very thorough. So
Some people accuse me of being too thorough, but because I could spend like 3 hours with every person, but I try to speed talk so it's 90 minutes.
I have a question.
Okay.
What, nutritional deficiencies do you see?
Good question. So everything that we talked about tonight, if you don't have a gallbladder, you cannot break down fats and proteins properly because of the lack of bile, because the gallbladder is what squirts the bile into the stomach to digest fats and proteins. So if you don't have a gallbladder, you should always take bile. So ox bile there's a product by Apex called Biomin, or you can buy any ox bile product, or another good option is bitters. Like if you want to take bitters from like Swedish bitters or Angostura bitters, you can take that too to help. But if you ever feel like really bloated after eating, or even to the point of feeling a little bit of nausea, if you have any discomfort up in this right quadrant, this is where the liver is, that's a sign that that can happen even if you don't have a gallbladder. But if you don't have a gallbladder, what happens is people will slowly gain weight, usually because if we're not breaking down fat and protein, we're storing it or packing it on. What? Storing it, yeah. Yeah. So it's important because everything that we talked about tonight would be in that same category, because if you're not breaking down fats and proteins, again, you could be eating everything wonderfully, like grass-fed, organic, all the good stuff. But if you're not breaking it down, it's just going through you undigested. So that was a good question.
Which brings up another point before another question. If your digestion is incorrect, it doesn't matter what you're eating, it could be off. So the digestion is an important piece of the puzzle to get sorted also. Because some of this might be deficiency because you're not getting it, but it might also be you're not absorbing it.
Mhm.
Your daughter who's had the stomach bypass doesn't absorb hardly anything because there's no space there to absorb like a normal stomach.
And that's why I suggested a liquid protein shake, because at least it's going to be a little bit more absorbable being liquid than something she's got to chew and break down. So it would be
So
helpful.
if there are 18 pros on it, or digestion fats and protein?
Yeah, and that actually has bile in it. That has ox bile in that product. Yeah, that's a good one.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
What about if someone had their thyroid removed, but you're on thyroid medication?
That's a whole weekend right there. But just to tell you that I'm against that. I mean, obviously people do it and they didn't know better. But the problem without the thyroid is that most doctors will give you just like levothyroxine or Synthroid. But without a thyroid, your body would be impossible to convert. Okay, so just short, TSH converts to T4, which converts to T3, which converts to free T3. Free T3 is what you use. Synthroid and levothyroxine are T4. So when someone takes those, which is what the doctor would give you with no thyroid, they're counting on somehow magically your body is going to convert those things. Without a thyroid, it's impossible. So what usually happens is people are taking levothyroxine, the doctors don't run the right labs to see what the T3 is doing, and they go, oh, great, your TSH is fine. Well, the TSH doesn't even matter. That's a signal coming from your pituitary. So if the conversions don't happen, then you very likely are low in T3, which is the one that matters.
So what would someone do?
Well, there's glandulars, like there's Armour Thyroid, which is a better choice. Cytomel is T3, or like GTA Forte. Biotics is a company in Houston. They have a great thyroid glandular. So there's other things. I'm not saying you're hopeless. I'm just saying that if it's the typical doctor approach, levothyroxine, it's not going to work. I mean, it's not going to be an optimal, and you'll know because your temperature is still too low. So if your temperature's low, like a lot of people got temperatures tested regularly during COVID, right?
Right.
So if your temperature was under 98, that's an indication right there that there's a problem. So you can get, like, if you guys contact me, there's a lab I have set up through Quest Labs, and the cash price is about $240. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's $2,600 worth of labs. But the cash price is $240. You can't even get these labs through your doctor, and they won't run these labs. But it's measuring all the right thyroid stuff, all the hormone stuff, CBC, CMP, cholesterol panel, CRP, which is inflammation. And it's actually a good baseline of, okay, what's wrong with me? So besides the other stuff I do, labs and functional medicine is one. So I would rather, I like labs because I could sit there and say, well, do this and this and this, but it's having a baseline to work from and know exactly, what the priorities are based on how far your numbers are out of range. And that's really helpful, especially with thyroid, because I don't know, people tell me all the time, oh, I have the best endocrinologist in Houston. And I'm like, there is not one in Houston. Like, there isn't. Like, there's no doctor in Houston. Well, one. That's running the right thyroid labs. And
He's
so,
not an endocrinologist.
right, he's functional
He's
medicine.
functional medicine.
Yeah, and DOs are generally very good. They'll do a good job, but
I'm gonna
sorry.
stop recording so we can
Okay.
do that, but we can continue the conversation. And I'll leave us on if you guys are online. But also want to say Gwen's prices are really, really fair, especially on products. She does not upcharge, gouge you if you see some of the same things online at other places.
Like a fourth of what Amazon charges, like, for instance.
Yeah,
You
so
get
she's
free
not just
shipping
trying to
with
sell your
Amazon.
products. You get value. So
Yeah, thanks.
all right, so you guys, GwenFosterND.com, and we'll send out the recording and the sheet so you can do your own testing. And if you want products, you can certainly order from them. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks. One other thing I want to go back to you on is on labs. The reason I don't think, I mean, $240 is what the lab charges me. It's not like I'm surcharging that either. But the reason is, how how much supplements cost, right? If you were to go to Whole Foods and buy a bunch of supplements.